What's up, guys? I am kicking off my channel with a little Q&A. I posted something on Instagram, on the Minimal Millennials Instagram, and asked for your guys' questions. So if you guys missed that and you're not following me on Instagram, go follow Minimal Millennials, but also Aubry Matney. And from now on, I'll do all updates and things like that on my Aubry Matney Instagram for this channel. Before I get into this though, I really just wanted to say a quick thank you. I'm super stoked about just the positive response we've already gotten about this channel. Thank you to all of you guys who are following me now, and I'm super excited to see what happens next. So let's get into some of your questions. This question is from getoffmyturf.co.uk. What are your top 3 go-to vegan meals just transitioning to veganism? First of all, that's amazing that you're transitioning to veganism. I would say my number one go-to vegan meal, especially when I was transitioning to veganism, is a Buddha bowl. The reason I like it is because it's so versatile. You can literally throw like leftovers into it and it's delicious. It can be different every single time, and so you don't really necessarily get bored of the same meal over and over, but it's really simple to make, just like whenever you don't really know what to make. So basically, if you don't know what it is, it's just a grain, a green, a protein, and then a sauce of some sort, and then you can add whatever else in there you want. So a lot of times I'll add like nuts, like, or seeds, like hemp seeds. I love those, things like that. So my favorite is to make it with quinoa. I always throw some avocado in there. A lot of times I'll put beans in there. I prefer like black beans and pinto beans over other proteins, vegan proteins like tofu and tempeh and stuff like that. And then a lot of times I'll put hummus or tahini. So that's my favorite. That's probably my number one. My number 2 would be pad thai, just because I freaking love it. I will link to the video where I made pad thai on Minimal Millennials, but I'll probably have a recipe video coming out very soon about my pad thai. Number 3, maybe the third one is tacos. So it's kind of interesting because I feel like I get a lot of comments and messages from people when we put tacos in our videos who are like, oh my gosh, I just went vegan and I didn't even connect that I could even eat tacos anymore. But tacos, again, are like one of those things that can be different every single time. They're so versatile and you can put so many different things in them. So my favorite taco is definitely chipotle field roast mixed or cooked up with like mushrooms, onions, and bell peppers and stuff like that. And then we'll just add, I don't know, whatever else we happen to have. Obviously avocado, a lot of times hummus, even though that doesn't really belong on a taco. So yeah, I would say those are my go-to vegan meals. You will probably be seeing recipe videos about all of those very, very soon. Ooh, this is a very interesting question. Just Alana says, do you ever feel fear and doubt about the life you have chosen so young? How do you pull yourself out of times like that? That's a really interesting question. I would have to say that I don't ever feel fear or doubt about the life that I've chosen, and I think the reason about that is because I always hold my life and my decisions very loosely, and I understand that it can change at any time. So even though I freaking love living in a van and traveling full time, and I love living in this tiny space, and we're pretty committed to it, like we're renovating our van and that kind of thing, but if our van for some reason got totaled or something else happened that made it completely impossible for us to live in a van and we got to do something else, I think I would try to make the most of it and understand that, like, you know, nothing is forever. So I think that's kind of the philosophy I live my life by. I think also it's kind of interesting that you say, like, because of being so young, I think that actually makes it easier for me to enjoy things that aren't necessarily super glamorous or exactly what I would have chosen and things like that, because I am so young, and I'm 22 for those of you guys who don't know. And so I know that there's like so much life to live still, and I still have so much time to change my life for the better. I think that's one thing that we probably, a a lot of people probably miss is like, you do have the ability to change your life circumstances. Whoever you are. Like, I've known people literally with chronic illnesses who have changed their life circumstances. I think whoever you are, whatever you're doing, I don't want to be naive about it. I do consider myself very, very lucky, but I do think that it's possible for people to change their life circumstances, and I think that we should all live our lives with that assumption. Hopefully that answers your question. Next question. Pa Chomps says, what inspired you to go minimalist? I'm definitely interested in minimal wardrobe, vegan recipes, and natural beauty tips. Super excited about that because I am interested in making content about that. Okay, what inspired me to go minimalist? I think it's kind of interesting because I think my entire life I've pretty much been a minimalist in a lot of ways. I just didn't really have a label for it. My entire life I was actually really, really, really messy, like super untidy, and it bothered my mom so much. But I think part of the reason was that it was hard for me to like keep track of the things that I had. And I have a lot of siblings, so I was, at one point I think I shared a room with all 3 of my sisters, so there were 4 of us in a big, huge bedroom. And that was like a lot of stuff to have in one space. And I think it probably would have been a lot easier for me to be much cleaner if I had less stuff and had like that almost freedom to get rid of things, if that makes sense. Once we moved into our apartment and it was totally, you know, our own life, like we could make our own choices, we weren't living with anyone else, then it was a lot easier for us to say, oh, well, I never wear this shirt, so even though, you know, I've had it for 5 years and it represents something maybe, sort of, but that's like the only reason that I'm keeping it around, I can give it away and somebody else can enjoy it better, and then I don't have to worry about that. So I think it was so much easier for me to keep a clean space once I was able to keep track of all of my things. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that inspired me to go minimalist, is I wanted it to not be like a huge hassle to keep everything clean. It's probably a boring answer, but I think that's probably the reality. Tessa May 1441 says, what's the best piece of advice you have for someone that wants to start van life and for someone that wants to work on the road? As far as starting van life, I think just jump in. Just do it. It's not as hard as it looks. In fact, it's a lot easier than it looks. So just, you're gonna figure the things out that are pretty unknown. We get a lot of questions about like, how do we do laundry? How do we go to the bathroom? How do we do dishes? Like little tiny aspects of life that I think people kind of are fixated on, that when you start living in a van, you realize are not very complicated at all, and you kind of just figure it out as you go along. So don't be afraid of it. Secondly, working from the road. That one's a tough one because I think it's such a case-by-case basis, but I would say, especially if you're a younger person who knows that eventually they want to live a more free life, they want to either freelance or work for themselves or work from home or something like that, which I was kind of that way when I was 17, 18. I was looking, you know, into college and things like that, and I knew that eventually I really wanted to be my own boss, and either that or work from home. And what I ended up doing in order to make that a reality was I just did a lot of free work. The company that I worked remotely for, you guys know, for like 4 years, I literally did a year of free work for them and proved my worth. And, you know, I was really young, so I didn't really have much to lose at all. So I did a bunch of free work, and then my boss called me up, or my supervisor at the time called me up and said, hey, I want to offer you a job. Write up a job description. And that was literally how I got the job that I ended up having for 4 years, that allowed me to work completely remotely and work from the road like this. But then outside of that, I also pursued things like this YouTube channel and building websites for people, and just like I hustled and wasn't afraid to like turn down opportunities. And I think that's the biggest thing, is like, if you have an opportunity, even if it's not perfect, take advantage of it, because you're never going to get the perfect opportunity. And especially when you're young and have very little experience, take advantage of those opportunities, because they're only going to build on each other and give you the freedom to choose exactly where you want to go much sooner than if you are waiting around for the perfect opportunity. So it's not necessarily like a quick overnight, do these 3 steps to find your perfect remote job kind of a thing, or to work for yourself. I would just say it's going to be a lot of hard work, and understand that going into it. But I don't know, like I think it's really exciting. I got so much experience in industries that I never expected I would, and I know a lot more now at 22 than most 22-year-olds, because I wasn't afraid to say no, or afraid to say yes. So that's my advice. Okay, this is a super interesting question. Brenda.E.B says, I'm moving into a van alone full-time and have some anxiety about where to park. Number 1, I don't like breaking rules/laws. And number 2, I want to feel safe and not paranoid about every sound outside. Thoughts, suggestions, experiences? So I always want to be careful with this question, because I've never lived in a van full-time by myself. I'm trying to think if I've even had any time in the van by myself. I don't think I have. I might this year. I definitely will this year. Which will be an interesting experience, and I'll let you guys know how it goes. We have never had a bad experience. We've never had a cop knock on our door, literally never, in the middle of the night and tell us we have to move. The thing that I think we've done differently than a lot of other RVers or van lifers or things like that, bus lifers, is we're very stealth. Like, nothing about this van looks like it is being lived in on the outside. And we've kind of intentionally kept it that way. We have like a freaking huge gash in the back of our door. We have rust. Like, we don't have any bumper stickers outside. We don't have a bunch of things on our roof or anything like that. It literally looks like a work van. And so if you can think about where you're parking, if a work van looks like it should be parked there, then you're not going to have any issues, literally none. So anyway, so I would like put your mind at ease for that aspect of it. You're really not going to run into that as much as it might feel like. The second part, as far as living in a van by yourself, it's tough, because like, yeah, sometimes the noises kind of do get to you. Like the first night we slept in the van, there was like a like some guy chasing a girl, or a girl chasing a guy, or something like that. It was like 11:30 at night, and we were like, what have we just gotten ourselves into? But honestly, like, if you can just park in a safe place, then you'll be good. And if you ever feel unsafe, you can move the van and go somewhere else. I would say also you just kind of get used to the noises and used to like kind of the outside world a little bit, because you technically are sleeping outside. So yeah, I would just put your mind at ease there. I think it's really not, here's the thing, is like, I don't want to speak from experience completely, because I've never lived in a van by myself. But after living in a van with a partner, I do know that a lot of the things that seem like they're going to be really scary are not scary at all. All right, last question. Andrea Loves Makeup 24 says, I have a question. If you and Christian weren't together, would you do van life single? I've never really thought about that before. It's interesting, because living in a van was Christian's idea. Like, I think I probably imagined myself traveling overseas more, and not necessarily backpacking, maybe backpacking to an extent, but doing more stuff like actually living in accommodations that you pay for as you travel. I never really thought about this as an option. And I probably would have been a little bit intimidated by building the van and things like that. But now that I've done it with a partner, I feel like if I were to go back and do it by myself, I would, 100%. So if you're a little bit nervous about it, or like you thought about it and you're like, that would be amazing, but I don't know if I can do the build, or there's something else that's like worrying you about doing it by yourself, I do think it's completely doable to do it by yourself. I'm trying to convince my sister to do it by herself right now. I think she's like a tiny little petite human and like the cutest thing, and has always loved small spaces. So I really want her to get one of those, like, have you guys seen those like little tiny Nissan cargo vans that you can stand up in? I really want her to get one of those, and I have like the perfect layout for her. I'm gonna build her van for her. Yeah. So anyways, I think it's completely doable as a single female. Obviously there are probably a lot of challenges that I don't know about, and there are plenty of single females doing van life that you can reach out to. So like a bunch on Instagram. I think there's some up and coming on YouTube too. So check those people out and ask them questions, because they probably can answer a lot of those questions better than I can. Okay, so thank you guys so much for your questions. I'm super stoked to get started with this channel. I think my next video will probably be like a what I eat in a day video or a recipe video or something. That'll probably be at least 50% of what I'm posting on this channel. So if you guys like vegan food content, then definitely subscribe, because you're going to be getting a lot of that. If you guys have any suggestions for videos, definitely leave them in the comments below. At this point on the roster, I have a lot of what I eat in a day videos, recipe videos. I think I'd love to do some kind of series on like how to get started as a vegan, because I think there's not a lot of content out there. I really want to make the vegan food content super simple, super easy, and super delicious. So let me know if you guys would like that content, kind of like how to get started as a vegan and what kind of easy go-to meals you could start with. And then I'll be having a minimalist wardrobe tour come out very soon. Skincare routine, you guys have suggested that a lot. Things like that. So stay tuned. Can't wait to talk to you guys. I'll see you guys next Sunday. Bye.